Problem solving plays a very crucial role in all of our lives. The very important benefit we all get by problem solving is that it helps us make better decisions. It is also important to note that different people solve problems differently. So if you have a problem and I have the same problem, our approach to the problem will be different. The important thing to remember is that both of us have the ability to solve problems. It is not the solution or the exactness of the solution. So in this module, we are going to be discussing a brief framework on how to solve problems. But before that, let's get into understanding what problem solving really is. What is problem solving? Problem solving is an art. It is not something that someone just learns overnight. It takes practice, it takes persistence. But if you keep at it, you will figure it out. It is also important to note that problem solving is an art because it asks you to be creative, which means you always have to think out of the box. You have to come up with your own solutions. It is not into clear defined lines or rules by which you can solve problems. A problem usually is an opportunity in disguise, and if you're able to understand this fact, it will encourage you to face problems and solve them. Problem solving is a challenge. If you take the challenge approach to problem solving, then that will encourage you to find solutions to your problems and forge a way forward to success. Problem solving is also a state of mind. Most of us have this impression in our heads that the moment we see a problem, we feel very demotivated or defeated. But being in the right state of mind will change that whole approach that you have with problems. I'm sure you must have noticed that there are some days when problems come and you're able to tackle them very effectively. That's because you've been in the right state of mind. So it is important to always keep the right state of mind so that whenever there are challenges that you face, you're able to come up with solutions. This state of mind is not difficult to maintain, but it takes practice. Problem solving is based on analysis, logic, and reason. So there is no gray area over here. In order to understand problems and in order to solve them, we need to know the exactness of the problem. Benefits of problem solving. One of the first benefits of problem solving is that it boosts your own confidence. This is very important because once you have this boost in confidence, it makes you feel that you're actually able to face the unknown and overcome problems. This puts you in a very positive mindset and you're able to face challenges and take new challenges head on. Problem solving also helps in decision making. Most of us are not able to achieve the things that we want, or we fall short of our dreams because we're unable to decide on what we want. This decision or this lack of decision making is because problem solving is not being handled correctly. Once we know we have the ability to solve problems, then we'll make decisions to pursue our ambitions. Problem solving also encourages risk taking. As you might already know that the most successful people in the world are the ones who've taken the biggest risks. Now the reason they took those risks is because they had that belief, that confidence that they can solve the problem. They did not know in advance what their problems are going to be, but they believed that they could. Solving problems or problem solving will give you that confidence and encourage you to take risks. Problem solving gives you a sense of accomplishment. It makes you feel that you've achieved something. It makes you feel like success. And it is this success feeling that will inspire to do more and to achieve more and push yourself to new heights. Solving is about facts and not assumptions. When we're trying to solve a problem, it's important to remain focused on what the facts are. When we're trying to find a solution to a problem, if we do not know the hard facts and we're completely just engrossed in assumptions, then our solutions will not be concrete and will not work in our favor. So the first thing we need to understand is understand what the facts are. Once we know the facts of the problem, we can find solutions. Steps to problem solving. Let's now discuss some concrete steps we can follow when we're trying to solve a problem. Step 1. Identify the problem. It is very crucial to first identify what the exact problem is. Most of us just tend to say that we have problems and we don't have solutions, but we need to, unless and until we do not find out the exact nature of the problem or the exact cause of the problem, we will not be able to find a solution. Most people have a very difficult time writing down what their real problem is. So at this first step, this is the first step to solve a problem. We first try and write down and be exact on what the actual problem is. We be honest with ourselves, we be precise, and we avoid wishful thinking. Step number 2. Here we analyze the problem. Analysis plays a very important role in finding a solution because once you analyze a problem, you get to know what is really going on. The first thing we need to do is identify the root cause. What is the root cause of the problem? What is the real reason that the problem is troubling us? Then we try and identify specifics of the root cause. So say for example there is a problem and you know that the reason for the problem is so and so, but that's not good enough. You need to get into the specifics. So for example, there is a team and the team has not been performing. Now we know what the problem is, that the team's performance is not in place, but we need to get into specifics. Now when we try and understand the specifics, we ask ourselves questions like, what particular parameter is the team not performing in? If a particular parameter is not being met, then who in that team are not meeting the parameter? Who are the people who are really doing well? And if they're doing well, why are they doing well? And if there are certain people in the team who are not doing well, then why are they not doing well? So we need to get into such specifics so that we analyze a problem effectively. Also remember to be sure during your analysis, because it is based on this analysis that you will follow the next steps. If your analysis itself is not right, then the rest of the steps will not be concrete. Lastly, if you like, you can seek advice at this stage as well. Sometimes we might look at a problem and not necessarily be able to analyze it. We might require another set of eyes. So it's always a good idea to sometimes seek advice during the analysis stage, just to understand that you've got the feel of the situation right. The third step is to brainstorm solutions. Here mostly what we can do is use past experiences and find solutions to such problems. This is usually not a very difficult stage because we have past experiences either from yourself or from others who have faced such situations and what they have done to overcome them. So once you have these solutions, you can then make an action plan and follow the next step. During the brainstorming phase, you could also research solutions. Sometimes past experiences might not give you solutions. So in such a situation, you need to do some research and find out what probably other companies or other teams or other people have done in situations like yourself. Last but not least, thinking out of the box is always a good idea. Problem solving involves being creative. It is an art. So thinking out of the box will help you find a more effective solution and probably something that's not very common or followed by everyone. So you need to think out of the box during your brainstorming session and find solutions that will fit into your problem solving. Step 4, develop an action plan. Here in this phase of the problem solving, we define exact steps which we're going to implement so that we have a proper action plan. Now what we can also do is develop some way of measuring our progress. Not only will we decide on what steps we need to do, but if we do those steps, what outcome are we expecting? We can also measure that. Once we measure the outcome, then we will know if our action steps are actually helping. Step 5, take actions and measure results. This is the trial and error phase. What we do here is we work on the action plan that we have made and we start to take measurements of the results we are getting. Now the moment we do this, we get a very good idea of how well our actions are actually working or not. While taking action and measuring results, we also need to be able to adapt, because this is a trial and error phase, so things might not always go according to plan. So whenever we take an action and we measure result, there might be some slight changes which we have to do in order to ensure the effectiveness of an action plan. So always be willing to adapt. Step 6, analyze results. This is the last step in the problem solving method. What we do here is we analyze all the information that we have before the brainstorming session. Similarly, here we have new information because of all the measurements we have taken. So here we analyze our results. We look at where we fell short, we look at what are the new challenges, and we try and see if our problem is being solved because of our action plan. If it is being solved, then great, you have solved your problem. If it is not being solved, then you return back to step 3. The mind, a problem-solving mechanism. The mind is a storehouse of dormant potential. I'm sure you already know this, but have you noticed that whenever you face a problem or you have a conflict with someone, immediately your mind starts chattering away. It starts presenting you with arguments and situations about what is happening. Why do you think that is? That is because the mind is designed to solve problems. The purpose you've been given a mind is so that you can solve your problems. What most of us don't realize is this machine, this mind, needs direction, and it is up to us to give us the direction so that it solves the problems for us. Now, in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to try and understand how to put this mind machine to work. Understanding intuitive intelligence. I'm sure you heard of the saying that I did something because my heart says so. Now, sometimes people confuse the language of the heart with an emotional reaction. I'm not talking of the emotional reaction. I'm talking of intuition. Intuition is something that is not necessarily based on logic and reason. It is just a feeling from the heart. You do something because you felt like it was the right thing to do. Sometimes people even say, my gut feeling told me so. So what we will do here is try and put this intuitive intelligence to use so that it will help us solve our problems. The thing with intuitive intelligence is that you have to learn to listen to it. You have to learn to tune into it. Usually we are not very conscious of what our own heart is saying, so we might not necessarily listen to the cue and act on it. The thing with intuition is that it happens during action. It is not a theoretical or hypothetical idea or a concept that you can actually imagine. It is more action-based. So unless and until you don't act on your intuition, you will not know if it is right or wrong. Defining a goal. The way your mind solves a problem is only if you think in terms of end goals. You cannot think of the way in which you're going to solve the problem, because that will only lead to more complications. You need to present to your mind what the end goal is. So say for example, you have a situation where you're in conflict with another person and you want to find a solution to this conflict. The ideal way for your mind to solve this problem would be if you tell the mind what the end goal is. So if you imagine the two of you in a very happy situation, then your mind will start giving you ideas on how to end up to this happy situation. But if you constantly imagine in your mind you two fighting, then your mind will constantly give you ideas on how to continue the fight. So here's an activity that we can do in order to understand how the mind can be used in problem solving. Write down a problem. Picture a solution for the problem. It is best if you do this activity before you sleep. Remember, it is not about how the problem is solved, but simply about the fact that it has been solved. So in your imagination, when you think of the solution, think of it as if it is something that is already solved. Now, as you go on during your day, wait for those moments of realizations. You will get certain cues or certain intuitive leads which will inspire you to act on the solution that will solve your problem. Now let's discuss some other problem-solving activities. You are working on a project where there is dependency on another person or team. Unfortunately, the other person is unavailable. How do you handle such a situation? Take a minute to answer these questions. Reassess the project and find out aspects that can be completed. How else can the requirements be met? Is availability a repeated issue? Does this require an escalation, change, or alternatives? The next activity. Imagine working on a project that is in its finishing stage. Suddenly you realize the possibility of a grave mistake that puts the whole project at risk. How do you approach this situation? Stop all work on the project immediately and reassess the extent of the damage? Or can an alternative be found? If not, then you could also inform your supervisor immediately. The next problem-solving activity is, how do you handle a customer who is not happy with your service because of something that someone else did or because of their own mistake? Acknowledge what the customer is going through. Own the issue even if you were not directly responsible for it. You represent your company and everyone in it. You are solely responsible for what happens now as far as this customer is concerned. If all else fails, choose to escalate the matter to a supervisor.